from Aris Industries.
All right, let's get started. So today I'm going to basically give you guys a little bit of an overview of the Eris tool. I'll start by describing the services, which is basically what you as a developer are going to want to build out for an application that uses a blockchain. And then I'll quickly demonstrate one of the native services that we have. It's a wrapper around IPFS. There's a few cool commands we can do with that. And then I'll talk a little bit about chains and blockchains and starting them, and we'll run through a couple of those commands. And then finally I'll wrap it all up with a simple example that kind of brings together IPFS and a blockchain. It's a little dApp, I guess, that I've been working on for the past few weeks. Okay, so Eris services. We're gonna take a look at all the Eris services that we have, and these are basically Docker images. Oh, ls is not the one I wanted. So there we have a whole bunch of services that we can start. If you want to start a Bitcoin node, you would just Eris services start btcd, and I always give it a flag just to get more output. And here you can see a bunch of different things. Wait a minute. So here we started the service. It connects to Docker, and I can talk more about Docker if you guys would like. We're never sure how to talk about Docker. Some people don't want to know anything about it. Other people are really confused. We love it because it allows us to do things that we otherwise couldn't do. So here's a bunch of stuff happened, and BTCD, the node, was started. So if we look, it says ls to list the services. We have this Bitcoin node running, and it's exposed to the internet on these ports. So if you're familiar with Bitcoin, you can make curl requests or basically talk to this Bitcoin node on these ports. And then here I've already started IPFS because I use it all the time. So I just did Eris services start IPFS, and that started up the IPFS node. So that's a great way. I mean, how much did you guys talk about IPFS yesterday, Dennis?
Very little, actually.
Very little? Okay, so should I talk about it then?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. So I like to describe IPFS as basically, IPFS is to Dropbox what Bitcoin is to banks. Is kind of the way that I look at it. It's BitTorrent, but just better. And the key thing is that you're addressing content on the internet by what it is instead of where it is. Right? So if you go to look up content on Facebook, you're asking, the Facebook servers, you're asking the internet, where is this content? And it goes and finds it on Facebook servers. With IPFS, it's adding content via its hash. And so that's really useful for kind of the permanent web, which is the IPFS motto or whatever they call it. So those are two services that we started. Let's just get right into some files. So assuming you have IPFS running as a service, you can do something like, oh, let's make a file first. Hello from Guelph. Okay, so if I go Eris files put, oh. So there you've got a bunch of information. Again, it connects to the Docker daemon. It sees that IPFS is running, and then here it has a file. And this hash now, you can go and look at it in IPFS. So Oh, actually, the other really cool thing. So now that IPFS is running as a service, let's. So here you can see that the port on my machine is exposed at 5001. So if I go to my IP, I'll bring up this web page. Oh, it didn't like that. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the machine that I'm working on, where I'm doing all the development and has the things that you're seeing, is at this IP here, and it exposes port 5001, which is an API that also displays a nice little web interface. So anytime you have IPFS running, you have this web interface. Although it doesn't always keep up, as you can see, that should be like 45 or more. So I'll put that out of the way. Oh, no, there's something else I wanted to show you. Right. So the file that I just added, you can go look at it through a public gateway. Gateway.ipfs.io/ipfs. And if we just grab this hash, and put it in there, there's the content. So that's basically how IPFS works. You add content to it. I'll close that. You add content to IPFS, and then you can basically get it from anywhere that you want. The problem with IPFS, though, is that if no one has to host your content. So if you put something up on IPFS, you can't just expect it to be there a month later. The idea is over time, more and more nodes will be hosting content, and the content can stay permanently. However, for the time being, what you have to do is pin a file. So you do something like, or we call it caching. Eris files cache, and it's probably going to tell me I can't do that. Yeah, because I've already added it on my node, I can't do that again. But if someone wanted to send me a file, I could cache it, and then it would be permanently on my IPFS node, unless, of course, my node goes down.
Can you copy URL and share it with us so people can try?
Yeah, yeah.
Please.
Did I close the? I think I closed the one. But where should I share it? In Slack, Dennis?
Yeah, you can send me on Slack, and I'll share it better.
Cool.
On the chat.
Yeah. So similarly, you can get files from IPFS. You can just save them. I'll put the hash in there, and then I'll name the file new Dublin.txt. Then if I cat that file, there's the contents of the file. So you can, IPFS makes it really easy to pass files around. And even if you're not running a node or anything like that, you can use IPFS just to pass files around between friends or for whatever purpose that you have. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about IPFS. Does anyone have any questions? You're gonna have to talk like directly into the mic.
Just for people to try it out here in the workshop, what do they need to type into their machines? Suppose they have Eris installed to start an IPFS node.
Oh, right. It should just be like, here, let me. Okay, so there I've just stopped IPFS. So if we go, you can see IPFS is no longer there. We're only running Bitcoin. So I'll. And so there, Docker did its magical, wonderful thing and started the service. So if we go now, you can see that it's running. So the command, if you have Eris installed and you've done, if you've installed Eris and didn't do Eris init, you should. I'm not going to do it because it's going to overwrite a bunch of my stuff. But if you've just freshly installed Eris, you need to run that command. So are people able to get it going?
Guys, if you're on Twitter, visit that and like I just tweeted the link to IPFS. So it works here.
You cannot see the comment. You go down.
What?
To see the comment you just used. How to start.
How to start IPFS?
Yeah, so if you've installed Eris and you don't have Docker, none of this is going to work. So that might be the first issue people are having. Other than that, I can't really see debug on your behalf right now.
We have Eris running, we have Docker, everything, but you're too fast for us.
Oh, sorry.
We cannot see the command you used because it's already scrolled out of the terminal.
Okay. So where should I go back to?
How to start IPFS.
Okay. Alright, so now I'm stopping it.
Okay.
So I can do it just like that. If I go, it'll start.
Don't press enter. Just leave it so everyone can try it out, please.
Cool, okay.
Okay. So the problem is exactly it doesn't have the config for the service, and if we do a service from every service is known, it says nothing.
Right. So you have to do Eris init.
Yes, we did that.
Okay. I thought we fixed this. Maybe it hasn't been merged to master. What do people get when they do Eris version? Yeah, probably everyone's on 0.2, right? Right. Okay. So what you'll have to do is something like so maybe you're using Vim or a different text editor. Nano might be the one if you're on Linux. I guess there's Vim on Windows. But basically, service definition files are the things that tell the services how to start. So what you need the service definition file for IPFS to work. So basically, here's what you would type in. I already have that in my services, but I'll post a link in about 2 seconds here. Oh, again? Oh, there we go. So here, if you go to this repo, Dennis, I'll post that for you. And then here, and then you can copy paste that into the new file. Because basically it should be identical to what I have right here.
How many people are able to follow? I still have questions about this whole thing. Right. So what are people trying to do? Where do you answer those questions? But you have to go on. Sorry, questions again?
Yeah, basically about the reliability. Okay, I have a question about the reliability of storing data that way. So, how much of the data is replicated in other nodes on the network? Or if I run just one node and the data is just on my own node initially, it's if I turn it off, then I lost the data availability in the agents, right?
Yeah.
But then, I mean, how much other people or other nodes replicate that data, and at what point in time can I remove my node and still expect to have that data on?
Right. Great question. The answer is no one knows how long. Basically, IPFS has it's either an algorithm of some sort or something that's a function of how big the data is in terms of storage size, how often it's requested, and a few other parameters. So those are those are unknown variables depending on your data. Other than that, yeah, the only way right now, because the IPFS network is so small, to ensure that you have your data up and running is to host an IPFS node.
All right.
Yeah, we've discovered that the hard way a few times. Cool. So were people able to add this to in this folder? The other solution for people who are a little bit more technically competent, you can go to the repo, check out the develop branch, and then run go install /command/eris.
Sorry.
Oh, and another thing that I should mention that might be slowing you guys down, especially if the Wi-Fi isn't really good there. basically all these services rely on Docker images. In this, like right here, this is our own image for a specification on how to run IPFS in a Docker container. Unfortunately, Docker images are about half a gig, so every service that you want to start requires pulling half a gig of an image to wherever you're developing or you're working. But you only have to do that once.
Zach, we'll need somehow for you to share the command lines. So you were pointing at GitHub page, right?
Yeah.
Can you send me, or can you share?
Should I do it on the Google? Should I do it on the Google? Like if I do this? Oh, that's the, oops. So here's a couple commands that people can try running depending on how their Go environment is set up. And then, or if depending on how you installed Eris, maybe you don't have fetch gen. You can do that. And then I might as well do it. So actually, when you do that, it'll automatically check you out on master, which, I mean, master is great. Master is stable, but because we're moving so fast, all the all the things that I know about are undeveloped. So I guess that's kind of a problem. But yeah, then you would want to do that again. Git checkout develop.
Will I not disturb if I have another question? All right. So regarding the nature of storage of information, right? So when we upload a file, right? I don't know. If this protocol implements the deletion of the file.
Can you speak like closer into the mic?
Yes, I asked, does the protocol implement also the possibility to delete the uploaded file?
Yeah, so you can remove a pinned file. So, okay, so IPFS has this thing called pinning, which is, we call it, the Eris files cache does that. So that's how you keep files around on your machine. If nobody's using the files or requesting it, it won't persist in IPFS, and it'll only persist insofar as you've pinned it or cached it locally. So you can remove a pinned file, like if I Eris, oh, oops. Oh, that's not good. Okay, I guess I need to fix that. So, yeah, you can let's see here. Yeah, I added these flags a couple of weeks ago, right? So you can remove the files that are pinned on your machine and all the nodes you control. What you can't do is guarantee that someone else hasn't pinned your file and that it's still out there. And even then, if you remove a file that's been pinned on your machines, it'll still stay around IPFS for a little bit, and I don't think there's anything you can do about that. But assuming no one else has pinned it, why would they if it's a boring file that, like, no one's going to pin your files unless they have a reason to. I don't think. Yeah, so you can remove it. There's just no guarantee of it. That said, we have an open issue about an encrypt flag, so that when you add a file to IPFS, you can encrypt it, and then only the person on the other end who has the key to decrypt it can do so. So that's coming, but we don't have that yet. And then the other thing to address maybe like private information, I don't know that IPFS supports it, but in theory, of course, you could run IPFS on a private network. So you could leverage the technology of distributed content if you wanted it with privacy. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the best ways is perhaps to encrypt the file that you upload.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just waiting on keybase.io to release a Go library. That's like, as soon as they do that, which should be any day, we're gonna have that flag. Like we just do it manually and then upload the encrypted file to IPFS. So, for now, that's your option.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Any other questions? Have people been successful in starting IPFS?
It's related to measuring the computation. Well, there are different algorithms according to which the hash is function. So it's like you have to solve another hash. It's good to find a way to turn the hash into a zero.
Can you explain what you're doing?
Yeah. So yeah. Let me go back. Oh. Okay. So now I thought I'd show you guys like basically a blockchain plus IPFS. So how many people are familiar with Bitcoin? Like most people in the room, I'm thinking.
Say it again, please, Zach.
How many people are familiar with Bitcoin?
Yeah, half. More.
Okay. Anyways, Bitcoin addresses, they're kind of confusing. It's a long string of letters and numbers. So are IPFS hashes. This is an IPFS hash. They all start with QM, by the way. So in terms of end user usability, a long hash for a file isn't all that pretty. So what I've gone and done basically is create a blockchain, and we'll get into how to do that shortly. I've created a blockchain and then added name registries on the blockchain. So I've gone and told this blockchain and done a transaction on it to say, okay, in this blockchain, I want you to register this name, and this is the data that's corresponding to the name. So the end result of that, if I can just get my file. So here, I mean, here you have an IPFS file up there, but we also have another file right there. So just basically, what I have going now is a little web server that exposes the ability to grab files from IPFS via a simple GET request. So you can, just give me a second here, I got to get that IP. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. Yeah. And the port for my server is that. I want to get file. Oh. To do that, great. So that was successful, and this right here is the content of that file. And so you could add, you know, a -o, and then that file is there for me to see. Oh, and it's good. Oh yeah, that's annoying. It put this stuff in the file. But so anyways, so that I call that the Toad server. This is like I just started building this thing, but basically it's a wrapper around IPFS and a blockchain. So I think that's a pretty cool application. We're going to be using this internally as a download server, but the idea is that anyone should be able to really easily launch a server that's hosting these files, and then the read and write access on these files can be managed by the blockchain and smart contracts. So that's kind of the idea with that, and like a pretty cool little first application for a blockchain plus IPFS. Does anyone have questions before we move on to Eris chains?
A JSON file?
One question is coming.
Is that a JSON file? A JSON file?
JSON?
JSON?
Yeah, what about it?
Is that a JSON file? JSON?
Which file?
The one I'm looking at, that one.
This right here? Oh
Yeah.
no, this is, I used a command line tool. It's not Mint, but if it's Mint info. So Mint info is a command line tool for talking to Tendermint chains. So I have here, I guess I can show you guys the blockchain that I have running. So here's the blockchain that I have running. It's mining right now. It's just doing its thing. There's not much to see. So I did mint info names, and it just returned to me the content. Like this command literally queries the blockchain. I could go mint info accounts, and you know there's more. It goes. Oh, come on. You know, it goes up, it'll show you all the accounts and stuff like this. I wasn't going to get too much into that. That's like slightly more advanced once you have a chain running and stuff. You know, there's other commands, mint TX, so that you can send a TX. So to register those names, I ran this command, minttx name, gave it an amount, gave it some data. And that created an entry. I mean, we could do one right now, right? I could do minttx name. Oh, let's give it a debug, just in case. Amount. Let's say, I don't know, Dublin. What's the event called again, Dennis? Dublin.
So
Whatever.
blockchain of Dublin.
Anyways, yeah, these helpers are a little out of date, but, and I think that might be all I need. Yeah. So now if I go mint info names, should be there. So that with, you know, the mint, these are just outputs from querying the blockchain essentially. Cool. Anything else about IPFS? We're going to change gears a little bit, and I'll show you chains. Okay.
Yep, go on.
Go on.
Mark, question?
Sorry, just a little bit late question. But just on the IPFS hash function, is that function permanent per file, or it goes to the file history and transitions as well? Like once you change the file content, does it change the hash of the file or the hash?
Right. So yeah, the hash, if you change the file, the hash definitely changes.
And then
They are
updates the blockchain as well. So these names of the blockchain.
Okay, yeah. So there's two things going on there, right? You have to think of the blockchain as completely separate from IPFS, because IPFS, that's like their own software with their own developers, and they're not doing anything with a blockchain. We use IPFS and their software in our software. So remind me your original question. Oh, the updating of the hash, right? Okay. So my long-term goal for this little application that I've just demonstrated is a decentralized GitHub, with the idea being that the blockchain will track, like, you know, when I commit changes to a repo and a file is updated, it's tracking all the changes between files via their hash. So the idea is you might have a blockchain that would track each hash as you update the file. So the file name stays the same, but you would create a new transaction on the blockchain that says, you know, now this is the new file. And then you would also have the whole history of all the files that you're pointing to. Of course, the problem there is you have to host each one of those files over and over and over again. So I don't know if there's a solution for that on IPFS. But I know that like Git or Git-like functionality is like native to IPFS. I haven't gone down that hole far enough to answer anymore. Cool. Yeah. Anything else before we? Yeah. Wow. That's a lot of commands. So here's what you get when you type Eris chains, and it's just like shows you all the things that you can do with chains. So the idea, I'll talk here for a bit if people are still trying this out. So I talked a little bit about services. The idea, if you're a developer and you want to build an application, is that eventually your chain becomes a service, and then whatever service or whatever application that you're building presumably is going to have more than one service gluing it all together, right? So like my application, the Toad server, is going to have at the very least an IPFS as a service and some chain as a service. You know, I'm not at that point yet where I can do the Toad server as a service, but that's like the eventual goal. And that, if you're developing on our platform, that should be your goal too, is that you want to, you know, you make your chain a service, you have some other services, they're all Docker based, and then you have your actual service that glues those together, and then off you go. And the idea behind that is that you have a service definition file, and it has a Docker image, and those things combined together makes it so that you can run your service exactly how it should be on one node, 5 nodes, 10 nodes, 100, 200, 1,000, and it'll be identical on all of them. And so as a scalability solution, it's pretty good, and that's kind of where Docker shines. So from that tangent, I'm happy to answer any questions about Docker if you guys have any, or maybe some clarification or things you want to know more about.
Right, I think we can move on.
Okay, great. Okay, let's see if I remember how to do this. So, you know, you can call it whatever. Government data. Okay, a lot happened there. So let's go up and review what happened. Okay, so I started here. I started a new chain called government-data. Again, it connects to Docker. It looks for some containers, doesn't find them, so it creates them. It copies a bunch of files from your local machine into a Docker data container. So that's what's going on there. Some more copying. Oh, darn. And then, so chains has keys as a dependency, which is almost a service. So, oh, keys is a service. Great. So keys wasn't running. It started running a keys server, so, or keys as a service. So keys is a little key signing daemon that runs inside its own container that is basically going to do all the signing for you, or whoever is interacting with your blockchain needs to sign on a transaction, right? Otherwise, how do you authenticate who's using your blockchain? So this is an example of like chains having a dependency that it starts up automatically, and that's written into a chain definition file. So yeah, it goes through the motions, starts up the service container, or key service container, starts up a data container, and then starts up ArisDB, which is the wrapper around what's going on in the chain. I don't know too much what's going on there, but it's the JavaScript. It basically exposes a JavaScript framework, but that's not a layer of the stack that I work on. So if you're a front-end developer, this would be where you want to look into. So we started a chain, and if we do Aris chains ls, we can see that it's running. So Tendermint chains, by default, are exposed at this port, 46657, but that's the port inside the container. What we want is the port outside the container. So if we go there, just bear with me for a second here. So remember again that I'm working on a remote host right now with IP 147.163 yada yada yada, and you can see there's the port for the container for the RPC endpoints, which are local inside the container are there. So the port thing's a little confusing. But anyways, once you've started your chain, now you've got this nice little thing, and you can go look around. You can go see the different accounts that you have. Right now, there's just one. There isn't even a pub key for it. There, he has a balance, and you can set a bunch of permissions. Like all these things right now are just set to default 0, because these are just for testing environments. So you can go look at the accounts. You can look at the status, and here you can see the latest block height, 117. And if I refresh, it just keeps increasing. It's like a block every second, 2 seconds, approximately. And every block that is decreasing, there's a new block hash. So very similar to Bitcoin or any other blockchain, really. So this, if people want to like click around on this chain because they can't get it started, I'll post the link here. And then here there's endpoints that require arguments. So if you wanted to interact with that chain, so earlier I was showing you guys, things like mid-info. Yeah, I guess there's a bunch of nuance here. Eris chains is a command that wraps around like at least 10 different commands and involves like a whole bunch of nuances, like manually setting environment variables in your bash RC and a whole bunch of stuff that, like, this command is like a month old, and 3 months ago when I started working for Eris, I had to set up a blockchain doing all these manual commands. And those didn't require Docker. So now, with the power of Docker and a bunch of gluing those commands together, we can have one command that abstracts away all these nuances. Yeah. So I don't know what else to go on. Do you guys have questions? Anything specific that you don't want me to talk about? I've kind of covered my ground, or the things I had on my list to demo, so we can go from there.
Questions or comments?
Okay, so using this system, we could put up a website. The website would have a very large hash address, and theoretically, say, the government wouldn't be able to close it down because it's decentralized. Do I get the concept right?
Well, you asked about something about having a really long address or something?
If you put up a file or a website up on IPFS, and we can share the hash address to other people. So
yeah.
it can't be taken down because it's decentralized. If that's
Right.
the advantage your system has over, say, if you put something up on GitHub, if GitHub goes down for some reason, say the feds close it down,
Yeah.
those files are gone. But in your system, it means it's partially owned everywhere throughout the internet.
Right. So yes and no. Right. So realize that we're using DigitalOcean droplets, AWS, this new platform that we love. It's called Packet, and these are all just hosting service providers. So we're at their whim. So if those guys all shut down because we're so dependent on like cloud hosting, then yeah, there's censorship. but yeah, you're right. Insofar as like if you're hosting these things, it's you hosting them, and you're able to, as long as those things have access to the internet, and you're exposing, and you're able to maintain exposure to that access reliably, people can access your files. Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else has questions? Guys.
Yeah. Yes.
1 second.
What's doing the proof of work in the background, is that?
Great question. Tendermint does not use proof of work. So you'll notice, like I mentioned, the block times are like between 1 and 2 seconds. That would be impossible with proof of work. You know, Ethereum has only got them down to 12. So I mean, I can talk a bit about proof of stake, especially as it relates to incentivization versus disincentivization. I think this is where proof of stake really shines. And this was also like the thing that I realized. So for the Bitcoiners in the room, you might know about the Scaling Bitcoin conference that just happened last weekend in Montreal. And my takeaway from that was that this whole field of cryptography and incentives and all the distributed web and all this thing, it needs to focus more on disincentives. And what I mean by that is rather than like, hey, you can plug this machine in to your wall and anyone can mine, there's an incentive to add to the network. That's great, but there should also be a disincentive. Someone needs to be punished if they behave badly. So that's what the Tendermint proof of stake protocol provides, because there is actually something at stake. So if you want to become a validator, which is the equivalent of a miner, but because nothing is being mined, we call them validators. Basically, if you want to become a full node that validates transactions on a Tendermint chain, you need to post what's called a bond TX, and you can see that here. One of the transaction types is a bond TX, which basically means you have coins on this blockchain because either you bought them on the market or someone sent them to you, and you post a bond, and then you start validating. And the amount of your bond, I may be wrong about this, but I can confirm. The amount of your bond basically is how much a percentage, it's like the equivalent to the hashing power analogy, right? The more you bond, the more transaction fees you're going to earn, basically. So if you misbehave as a validating node in this framework, you get slashed and you lose your bond. So that's a disincentive. So in terms of governance, I really like the idea that like city councilors should have something at stake. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't it be great if city councilors stood to lose? Right now they don't. And so there's going to be corruption and misspending and all these different things. Yeah, so that was my little ramble about that.
Cheers, nice. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Another question?
Will there be a graphical user interface implementation of IPFS, or is it not possible due to security flaws and so on?
Yeah, I maybe you weren't there, but I demoed it very briefly. It's on the 5001 port. You just do this. If you have an IPFS node running, you put in your IP that it's running. If you're running it locally on your computer, you would just type localhost. And assuming I have it running, yeah, there we go. So, I mean, now you have a web UI for IPFS. You can go see what's there. I don't think anything's there. It's a little buggy. I used to use it when I was developing on IPFS, like as a way to confirm that my things were working. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's nuances. Like if you do a command one way, it shows up one way in the web UI, but it's a little buggy, I guess is all I'm saying. But it's pretty cool. Like definitely you can search by hash. do a bunch of stuff, different things. I haven't played with it, but yeah, if you're a developer and you like IPFS, I know they'd love some help, right? So like, you know, no one in IPFS is doing this for profit, so feel free to help them.
More questions, guys? Does anybody has more questions? While Zach is still here. Through silence, Zach.
Cool.
Digesting what you've just shown or trying to replicate on their own machines.
Yeah, all these Mint tools, like unless you've installed Mint client, aren't gonna work. And the idea, like what we're trying to achieve is that in fact you don't have to install any of this. Like ideally, like when you have like here, what do we got going on here, right? So here's the Eris DB that's running this instance of the chain. The idea is that eventually you'll be able to like issue commands from within that container. I think we can already do that. I just haven't played with it enough to know how to do it. But the idea is you don't need any of these tools, and also that there's a JavaScript front end for it that you should probably look into. That's probably where you want to look into. It depends where at the stack you want to be, I guess. So yeah.
I see. No, thank you very much. It was very good, very interesting.
No problem.
And guys, round of applause for Zach. So, thanks a lot on this, and I'll send a link when we look what we were able to capture on this Google Hangout.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Cheers. Thanks guys.
Yep. We'll switch to having some pizza and a few beers.
Sounds good. And so if you guys have more questions, like we're on IRC, Eris-dev, hop on, and hopefully, yeah, someone will be around to answer your questions.
Okay. Yeah.
If not, it means our bot is down for our Slack channel. So like get at us through Twitter or something like this.
Yeah, the Twitter works quite well.
Yeah, it does. It's almost better than the channels.
That's true. That's true. There's much more people using Twitter than RSS right now. So thank you very much, Zach.
No problem. Cheers, guys.
Yeah. Have a nice day.
Thanks.
Rest of your day. Enjoy. See you. Bye. All right, guys. We have pizza.